morning friends, how's it going? I am Chelsea Face. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, please give a subscribe and like this video, and let's just get into this month's wrap up. I'm very excited to show you all the books that I read in the month of January. So, if you guys didn't know, I have been a reading crazy person this month. I don't know what happened exactly, but I read so much more than I normally would, and I kind of loved it. Like, I don't know if I'll be able to do this every month, but I guess I'm just like super like motivated to read a lot at the moment. So I've been buying more books than I probably should, but I've also been reading a lot. Let's just get into it. So the first thing I read this month is The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. This is a middle grade, and as you can see from the pretty little stamp here, it's won a ton of awards. This is the 10th anniversary edition. I picked it up from my local bookstore, and I was just giving it a shot. Like, I literally had only heard one person talk about this on BookTube, and that was Lexi. I'll be sure to link her in the description if you want to go check out her channel. She talks about middle grades a lot, and she is just the best place for me to find a good middle grade that I'm interested in. Highly recommend her. But this is about a boy named Nobody Owens. Literally, that's his name, Nobody. His parents are tragically murdered one night when he's a baby. And so he ends up being taken care of by the people of the graveyard that's nearby. And it's just his whole life up into a certain age, just his experience being taken care of, being educated, and the adventures and the misadventures he gets into while he's living in this graveyard. I just thought it was really cute. It was so fun. The boy, obviously, he's a teenage boy at points, so he's gonna make mistakes, and so he gets into mischief and everything, and then he falls in love and he makes friends, and it's just really cool. There's a lot of really fun things that happen in this, and I can't recommend such a magical story enough. Like, if you're very interested in middle grade and giving it a shot, I recommend this one. And this edition came with some really cool illustrations inside of it, like that. But yeah, I wanted to start giving you guys average ratings for a book, and then alongside that giving you my rating so that you know where I stand on the ratings. And surprisingly enough, a lot of these I actually agreed with the masses. So on this book, it has an average rating on Goodreads of a 4.13, which is really high. I think that a lot of people really love this book, and I gave it 5 stars. Pretty close. I really enjoyed it, and I highly recommend it if you're interested in checking out a middle grade. The next thing I read was a manga NetGalley arc from, I forget the publisher, but I'll post a picture of it right here. Whisper Me a Love Song by Eku Takashima. This is a Yuri, and I kind of just picked it based on the cover on NetGalley because I was like, I have a new tablet, I want to read it. I chose it, and it was really cute. I think the art is fantastic. It's very precious. The characters are very relatable and adorable, and different personalities for the two main character girls. I really like the taller one here because she seems more of a musician, and I just find that really cute. This whole thing is based off of them liking each other, but also music. So the younger one, or the smaller girl, she hears the taller girl singing one day, and she instantly falls in love, or not necessarily falls in love with her at first. She just admires her very deeply, and the other girl doesn't know if she loves her or if she just really wants to be like her and admires her singing and everything. So I just thought that was really fun. And then they might fall in love, and music's involved, and it's just really precious. I really would like to pick this up and read the second volume if and when it comes out. I think it might still be on NetGalley, maybe. If you wanted to check it out, I would give it a shot and look it up. But it was just so precious, and the art's cute, and I don't know, it just gave me all the feels, so I recommend. It has an average rating of 4.01 on Goodreads, and I gave it 5 stars, so pretty good stuff. The next thing that I read this month is called Hungry Hearts, edited by Elsie Chapman and Caroline Tung Richmond. This is a anthology, a short story collection with 13 tales of food and love, is what the cover says. On the back here, it has some of the authors that are featured in it. A lot of these authors, I've heard people talk about their books really well, but I had personally never read any of the authors in this book. So I was very excited. And I had put it on my wish list in a group like Secret Santa for Christmas, and I didn't expect to really get it, but my friend who got my name in Secret Santa, she's also a culinary major, so she picked this, and it was so perfect and cute. I'm just really, really excited that she picked it out because it was so good. I already marked every single story in this, so I can read you off all of my ratings for them. I gave the first story, Rain, 2 stars. The second story, Kings and Queens, 3 stars. The Grand Ishk Adventure, 4 stars. Sugar and Spite was 4 stars. I really liked that one. Moments to Return, 3 stars. The Slender One, 4 stars. That one was more scary. Gimme Some Sugar, 5 stars. That one was a cute story involving like a black family and like a secret ingredient that they would always use. It was really good. The Missing Ingredient, 5 stars. That one's my favorite. It was a horror story and it was really suspenseful and like I didn't expect the ending there. Hearts a la carte, 3 stars. Bloom, 4 stars. A Bountiful Film, 2 stars. Didn't care for that one. Side Work, 2 stars. Pandaria Pastellaria, 4 stars. I loved how the authors, like all of them are different, so they all wrote their own thing. But I guess, they collaborated in a way that they made their stories connect in a certain way. And so at the very end, you get a story from the perspective of a character that has been in just about every other story. But you finally get her story at the very end, which was the Pastellaria, whatever one. These were so fun. Like even the ones that I gave 2 stars, I still enjoyed reading them. And I don't know, there was just something really calming and just heartfelt in this that I want to experience again. So I've been on the move trying to read more short story collections. And I'm not sure I'll get the same experience because this is just so, it's about love and food and everything and family. And I just really love this book. Like I ended up giving it 3 stars because it rounded that way. It was 3.46 and I rounded that down because, rounding works. And then the average rating is 3.75. So I got pretty close and it could go up back to a 4, but it was just so fun to read, even if all the stories weren't 5 stars. It was just such a good experience, in my opinion, and I'll never forget it. Like, I really, really, really love this book, and I'm glad that she bought it for me because I don't know if I would ever have eventually picked it up because I have so many books on my wish list, Yeah, I just really enjoyed the experience, and I recommend it to anybody. There's stories for all different ages in here, and yeah, it was so good. The descriptions of food were... it just sounded so delicious and it was lovely. It was just a lovely time. Do recommend it. The next thing I read was volume 6 of Ouran High School Host Club. This is the most recent volume that I needed to read and my library luckily has them. This is a story about Haruhi Fujioka, who is a very androgynous character girl. She makes very high marks in school, so she goes to this school for the super, super, super rich and wealthy. And she's not super, super rich and wealthy. She just gets like a really good scholarship. And she ends up meeting this group called the Host Club there, which is, a kid version of a escort service kind of, because they have women come and they just hang out with these women and like make them blush and make them like, And so it's just really weird to watch these boys who are just all gorgeous and all cute and beautiful just woo these women over and over again. And it's funny. It's supposed to be mostly just a comedy, maybe a little romance thrown in there. And it's fairly innocent. There are some comments made that are outdated because it was made a long time ago, but it was also very forward in the gay and LGBTQ, any community like that. It was pretty forward in my opinion. I think that it needs to be rewritten and a couple of the words need to be changed, but overall it was very progressive at the time. And Haruhi ends up having to join this host club for several reasons, and it's just their shenanigans, and it's very cute. And this was just a continuation of that story. In this volume, they had a festival where their parents had to come. You find out that Tamaki's family is not very nice. Like, they're not great people, and he has a dark past that he just seems to be so positive in his outlook on life and just a good, happy person that you just didn't realize that he had such a bad past. So very interesting backstory that we didn't get in the anime. and I'm excited to pick up volume 7. So I ended up giving this one 3 stars, and the average rating on Goodreads is 4.48. So mine was a little bit lower than the usual. So that's interesting. Do recommend though. The next book I read is one that I'm very excited to tell you guys about because I think more people need to read it. I want to preface it by saying that I am a fan of the author on their YouTube channel, so be sure to check them out. I'll put them in the description if you're interested. They're called Funhouse. They have several different people who collab together, and they make video game, just comedy content for adults. It's not necessarily for kids, so I love them. They're also funny, and she wrote a book. One of them is, her name is Elise Willems. Her and her husband both work on there, and I'm a huge fan of Elise and all of them, but this is her first book that she wrote, and I was like, heck yes, I'm going to check it out. It's a middle grade, and it's called A Night in Halloween House, and it's a story about these, I think 4 or 5 kids who on the night of Halloween, they are given their first like freedom to go out and trick-or-treat on their own. They find this house that's like crazy haunted and just insane inside. It's really, really fun because, you know, it felt like a better version of a Goosebumps book. Because I love Goosebumps and Fear Street and all that, but there always is something just missing from those. Not necessarily like adultness, like blood and gore, but there's always just a little bit of something missing in those, I think. But this, I feel like, had it. This was really, really fun. And I can't say that it was perfect. I do think that there are some things that could have been improved if this was published through an actual publisher, because this was self-published and sold on Amazon. You could buy it digitally or physically. And my copy was curled like this, which is part of self-publishing, you know, because you don't get as high quality in printing. That doesn't bother me because I'm just going to stick it in my shelves after I read it anyway, so it's probably going to flatten out over time, and if not, oh well. But there were a couple of spelling errors in this, like one in the beginning and then one in the middle, that I feel like should have been caught because they were pretty obvious. That's self-publishing, you know. You're not going to have a ton of editors and you're not going to have a ton of people reading over it probably. But other than that, it was really well written, and I'm trying not to be super biased when I review this, but I can't help but being a little bit because I know the person who wrote it, kind of. It fits her personality so well. It was really funny, really quippy. There were a lot of like little puns and like funny things in here, just so Elise, and it was so cute, and it had her personality all over it. And I think even if you didn't know who she was, you would enjoy this book. I think that it's great for the age that it was written. I don't know, I just really enjoyed the story. I think that it was really well done and short enough to not be so, it wasn't too much, but it also gave you just enough, wrapped up the ending very well, nice happy ending, and it was pretty spooky at times. So I really liked it. I highly recommend this. I gave it 4 stars, and it has a 4.40 on Goodreads, so pretty close to my rating. A lot of people who read this also are fans, so that rating might be a little skewed based off of their opinion of the person who wrote it, but I still do recommend it. I think you'd like this. I do really like reading books written by YouTubers that I watch, so if you know any that have written their own books, you can leave them in the comments, and if I watch them and I didn't know they had a book, I might go check it out because I enjoy that. I've bought several people's books that I really like to watch. The next thing I read is kind of a disappointment. I'm not gonna lie. Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado. I loved her memoir. It was so good. Highly recommend that. I did not enjoy my experience, if I'm not lying to you. When I do short story collections, I tend to rate every story and then I average them together at the end to give you my official rating because I feel like that's fair, even if my overall gut feeling might feel that it's a little bit higher or lower. I just think that I think really hard about these ratings for each story, so I feel like my average rating is as correct as it's going to get. For this one, I'm going to read you every single story rating that I have here. The Husband Stitch, I gave 3 stars. The second story I gave a 2 star. It's called Inventory. The third one is called Mothers. I don't remember anything about this one, but I gave it a 1 star. I must have really not liked it. I really wish I could remember what these were about, but they flew out of my mind. The next one is the one that I have a big problem with in this book. I seriously hate that this was put in here. It's called Especially Heinous, and I gave it 1 star. And the reason I did not like this story is because all it was, and I'm being completely honest, I'm not just exaggerating here, she spent so many pages in this chapter, in this short story, literally just quoting like Law and Order SVU episodes, putting the whole episode in like a paragraph. And like that's the whole short story, was just little summaries of these episodes. And I understand that that's a cool little thing to write like on a blog or maybe your Twitter feed or something, but I don't think that that was appropriate for a book. Like, it felt like a waste of paper. I read most of them, but I got bored and kind of skimmed through it, if I'm being honest. Did not care for that. I think it was lazy, just uncreative writing. I did not enjoy that whatsoever. I've watched Law and Order SVU, so I know what the episodes are about. I don't know if that would affect someone differently if they had never watched Law and Order. But as someone who's like seen every single episode ever, like, what was the point of that? I didn't learn anything. I understand that this is about feminism and like women's bodies and the things that people do to them, but I know that. I know what bad things men do to women's bodies, like rape and like sexualization and just gross things. I know. I don't need you to just IMDb me, copy and paste some summaries. And it just felt wasted. Like, it felt like a waste of paper to me. That one made me a little upset. I felt like I was being cheated out of time. And it goes on forever. Oh my gosh. The next story is called Real Women Have Bodies, and I gave that one 2 stars. The next story is called 8 Bites. I gave that one 4 stars, and that one was pretty good. I enjoyed that one enough. I think it had something to actually say. The next one's called The Resident. I gave it 5 stars. There's random bits of sex in this one in particular that just didn't... That's something about this book, y'all. Like, I'm all for women's bodies and talking about sex and just glorifying everything about it, and even big, small, any size, color, anything. But this book felt like it was just really trying to throw sex in your face for no reason. Like, there didn't feel like a reason for a lot of the sex that was in this. It just kind of felt like I was reading a normal story, and then all of a sudden somebody was having sex. And it did nothing for the story. There was no point to any of it most of the time. There might have been one where it made sense, but it just felt weird. Like, it felt like, I don't know. Like, I can't explain it, but I feel like if a man had written something similar, I would be kind of grossed out, if you know what I'm talking about. So, I don't know. I just didn't care for that very much. And I normally really like when people talk about sex because it's so shied away from in society. But not when it doesn't make any sense. And I feel like this didn't make any sense in most cases. This story in particular had a scene where there were these 2 people just having sex in the kitchen in the building she was staying in. And then that was it. There was nothing to that. I don't know. I guess it happened, but why did you feel the need to tell me about it? I don't know. Then the next story is Difficult at Parties. I gave that one 3 stars, and that was the final story. So yeah, there are good things in this. I'm not going to get rid of this book. I'm going to keep it in my collection because I did enjoy some of the stories so much. The average rating on Goodreads is 3.91, and I feel like that's pretty well deserved. I was very surprised to see that rating. It's not quite a 4, and I think that some people might feel the same way that I do based on that rating. I gave it 3 stars using all of my ratings together and then rounding it up. I think I rated it up because it was like a 2.6 actually. I can't recommend it because it seems very specific to people. Just not my cup of tea, but to each their own, you know. The next thing I read is another digital manga. I got this one from Kindle Unlimited because I do have like a free trial till March. It's called A Sign of Affection by Sue Morishita, which is the same author/writer duo as Shortcake Cake. And you guys know I love Shortcake Cake right now. This is, I don't think it's been published yet, but this is something that is, you can read the first 2 volumes on Amazon. And I was so excited to check it out because I'd seen the pictures all over their Twitter page, but I didn't read it because it was in Japanese. I was so excited to check this out, and it's so cute. Oh my god, I've never seen a manga like this. It's about these characters who are deaf, and I guess they're mute as well because she doesn't speak, but maybe she just doesn't speak, but I don't know. She uses sign language. That's like 90% of this is about sign language, A Sign of Affection. It's kind of cheesy title, but whatever. She has this friend who also speaks with her in sign language, but she, I think, can speak. The girl who is deaf is just so precious. I love her so much. She's a great main character. She has such a sweet personality, and she's trying really hard to like talk to this boy who is very interested in her, and she doesn't know if he's interested in her like romantically or if he's just interested in her because he likes to learn about other languages and other cultures, and so maybe he's interested in her because she's deaf, and so he's just curious, and that's why he's giving her so much attention and He wants to learn sign language for her so he can speak to her properly. And she can read lips kind of, so he tries really hard to like slowly say the words so that she can read his lips. And I find that really cool. It was just so cute, and I want to read more of it. It was so precious. It was so cute. I can't recommend this enough, guys. Please go read this if you've got a way to read it. I think the first one might be coming out very soon in February. Physically, if you want to check that out. I'm probably going to collect this series because it was so darn cute. I don't know how long it's going to be or anything, but I can't recommend it enough. It was so good. I gave it 5 stars easily, and the average rating on Goodreads right now is 4.42 stars. So it has really good reception so far, but I can't speak to the representation in this, obviously, because I am not deaf or mute. And I think that the author actually had some people on staff helping them with this so that they did get the representation right. But if you are, please read this so that we can know if it's properly done, if it should be praised as much as it is being praised, because I'm recommending it based off of my opinion, but I don't know if it is doing something wrong. I don't feel like it is, but let me know, and I will address that the next time I talk about it, because I think those things are very important to have our own voices and representation and everything. The next thing I read for the month of January is Mermaid Saga, Volume 1 of the new Viz Signature Editions. And if I'm not mistaken, there's only going to be 2 of these as opposed to 3 of the original series. This is a reprinting of Rumiko Takahashi's Mermaid Saga. It's so good. Oh my gosh. Who knew that I would love another Rumiko Takahashi? She's my favorite mangaka, if you didn't know, and I'm absolutely obsessed with this story in particular. We are following this character right here, who, his name is Yuta, and he is having several different experiences traveling with this girl who he meets in the first story, and he has eaten the flesh of a mermaid. And in this world, when you eat the flesh of a mermaid, you become immortal, or you become a nasty monster, or you die. Like, there's like 3 options so far what you can become, because not everyone can handle it. Like, their body just rejects the meat, and he happens to have eaten it and become immortal. So he's trying to figure out how to become mortal again so that he can just live a normal life and die. And this girl's going to help him because she also was fed mermaid flesh. But I don't know if she's as interested in turning human or not. But either way, they're traveling together. And it's just so good. Like, the mermaids are scary. It's very horror. I would say this is more of a horror than any of the other stories that Rumiko Takahashi has made. It was so scary and like gory and like dangerous. It was so fun. I cannot recommend this enough. It was so good. The art's very Rumiko Takahashi. Nothing extremely unique about it other than her usual style, you know. The characters are very interesting. There's a few color pages thrown in this edition, so I do recommend picking this one up. It has these pretty little French flaps on the front and back with their mermaids on it. And yeah, it's beautiful. This is fantastically done, and I can't wait to read the rest of it. It's about to come out, so I'm going to definitely pick that one up. I gave it 5 stars, and Goodreads has it at a 4.20, so pretty close. The next thing I read for the month of January is Domino Falls. This is the second book in the series by Stephen Barnes and Tananarive Due. They're a married couple, and they write together sometimes. This is a zombie apocalyptic story, and there's supposed to be a 3rd book, but I don't think we're getting it, which makes me sad. I would like to wrap up the series. It's not so badly left a cliffhanger at this that it makes me mad or anything. I think this wrapped up fairly well to where I'll be satisfied on the inside, but I would wish that the 3rd one would come out, even if it's just digital. But this is a horror story about this group of ne'er-do-well teens who meet up in the first book from a camp that helps kids who are in trouble, you know, do better. Like, it's just a camp for summer, like summer camp for kids who have done crime or something. And they all meet there, except for this one girl. She ends up joining them later. And they travel together through this apocalyptic situation because they were getting to the camp, and then this situation happened. And so they just ended up banding together because they had to survive. And they pick up some friends along the way that need help also, or who help them, offer something in return. They're traveling on this like rickety little bus vehicle van thing They have a dog that comes with them. It's a very age-appropriate thing, I think. A lot of this is mostly for YA, I think. There's a lot of cursing and killing in this, so it might not be for kids, but I think it would work for a teenage reader. There wasn't any, like, sexual content much. There was just some kissing and stuff in the first book. But the zombies are very interesting in this. I think that the explanation at the very end of this gives you so much that I was just really curious about in the first book, and I didn't know if they were going to reveal at all, because sometimes when there's zombies they don't tell you how they became zombies. They just, oh, they're zombies now, and there's no like real backstory telling you anything about it. But this goes into like the scientificness of it and like what is happening. There's like some kind of, are aliens involved? Like, what is this? And it was so cool. There was like a culty thing going on in this, which you know me, I love cults. And I really enjoyed it. I was very surprised at how much I enjoyed the sequel to that book, because I gave that one a 4-star. And then I ended up giving this one a 4-star as well. And it has an average rating of a 3.86 on Goodreads. So that's not too bad. I recommend the duology as of right now. And maybe they'll come out with a third book. And I'll be honest, I tried to find this brand new to support the authors, but I could not find a brand new copy anywhere. So I ended up paying like $6 for this library edition that was sold. But yeah, I enjoyed it, and I do recommend it if you can find it. Maybe you can get it digitally, I don't know. The next thing I read this month is Waiting for Spring Volume 2 by Anna Sheen. This is a cute little story continued from the first volume about this group of friends who are they meet up. The girl is very shy and has trouble making friends, and she ends up making friends with our basketball team. And there's like a group of 4 or 5 dudes who she meets and starts hanging out with at this cafe that she works at, and they're just really funny. They pick on her a lot, but like in a very friendly way, and it's very innocent and sweet. She ends up falling in love with one of them for sure. Like, she's obviously in love with one of the guys. And I think he likes her, but I'm not quite sure. And I think that's the point of it, is to like figure out if he really likes her or not. But there's a rule that the guys who are in the basketball team are not allowed to date while they're playing basketball, because they need to be focused on school and basketball. So there's a struggle there that's going to be addressed later, I'm sure. In this volume, an old friend that from her past comes back and ends up being a love interest. So yeah, I don't want to spoil too much, but it's gonna have some rivalry going in, and that happens a lot in shoujo. Is you have the character who's just randomly thrown in there to create tension between the love interests, and I kind of like that trope sometimes when it's not done over and over and over and over and over again. But so far it's the first time, and I'm liking it. I think this has a lot of things to say, and I'm very excited to continue it. I can't wait for the 3rd volume. I gave that one 5 stars, obviously, and it has a 4.23 on Goodreads right now. The next thing I read is Sweat and Soap Volume 1. Why did I wait so long to read this? You tell me. I know. Everyone that has read this has raved about it, will not stop talking about it. Shay from Shay Geeks Out will tell you that this is something to behold, and I will link her channel in the description if you want to check her out. She has talked about this book nonstop and trying to get everyone to read it, and everyone who has read it has loved it. This is a lovely adult story about this adult couple who work at a bath, soap, perfume, just smell company. She works there because all her life she's felt very self-conscious about the way that she smells and her sweat output. So she's very, very like worried about everything. And she's constantly going to the bathroom and like redoing herself, like deodorant and just changing shirts. And it's just very stressful that she just feels so bad about the way that she smells to everyone. She's worried about it constantly. And then he is one of the people who develop the smells for the company. And he's like, part of the development team. And she just does like accounting or something like that. And he ends up walking by her one day and smelling her. She's excited looking at a display of something, and he smells her, catches a whiff. So, if you didn't know, this is a little fetishy, but I'm for it. And there is something to be said about people's smells toward each other and your attraction to them. Like, there's science behind that. So, I really, really like that that's what this is about. It's a weird name, weird concept, but just give it a shot. Don't kink shame. It's harmless. And it's just a really good story about 2 consenting adults who have a healthy relationship, at least so far. When they have a problem, they talk about it, and if he does something wrong, he immediately apologized, and it was really smexy. I love it so much. I can't wait to read more. It's fantastic. Love it. I gave this 5 stars, and it has an average rating of 4.28, so people really like this overall. Do recommend it. The next thing I read was also on Kindle Unlimited. It is Josh Mallerman's A House at the Bottom of the Lake. This is a short story, like a novella. It was very interesting. I had heard Books and Lala talk about this a lot on her channel, and Gabby talked about it on hers, but I didn't really know much about it because it is so short, people don't want to spoil it for you. So all I knew going in was that this is a story about a couple of teenage kids who go on a date and they find a house at the bottom of this lake. That's all I was given. Yeah, that's pretty much what it was, but it gets really spooky. The atmosphere in this is top notch. It's so spooky, and you feel like you're in the water with these kids. They're going to these different lakes, and one of them is separated and no one goes there, and that's where they find the house. And yeah, I don't want to spoil it for you if you do pick this up, but it is spooky, and it gave me this really eerie, weird feeling that I would never gain back, if that makes any sense. And I'm not sure what the whole ending was about. It was very weirdly ended, but I enjoyed the story overall, and I do recommend it. I ended up giving it 4 stars, and it has an average rating of 3.28 on Goodreads, so most people kind of like it. And I think it was a quick one-day read. I read this in one day, and yeah, a good story by the author of Bird Box. So if you like that, check this out too. The next thing I listened to on audiobook through Libby was You by Caroline Kepnes. I was obsessed with this book, y'all. I randomly just decided I wanted to listen to an audiobook one day at work while I was doing some mindless task, and I chose this one, and I loved it. Oh my god, I listened to it in a day and a half. I'd heard about this, and I know it has a series on YouTube, on Netflix that I haven't watched, which I want to see if it's any way similar, or if it's just kind of going off. But this is a story about a man who is obsessed with this girl, and it's from his perspective. I think it's second person, where he's just talking about you. You, the girl. And he is insane. He is a stalker. There are so many trigger warnings in this. I would not recommend it if you are very sensitive to things like stalking and just that kind of behavior and what it leads to. Because it got very gross and dangerous and obsessive. This is a story about this man who follows this woman, and he thinks that every little thing that she does is for him, and oh, I know you were thinking about me when you picked out your outfit this morning, or I know that you looked at me like that because you're a little slut. There's a lot of slut shaming, there's a lot of fat shaming, there's a lot of homophobia and xenophobia in this. He talks about so many bad things, but it's always the main character who's the bad person doing these things. It's something, y'all. This book gave me some chills, and it took me places that I didn't expect to go when I was listening to it, but I loved it. It was so crazy listening to this dude. And I've watched a lot of documentaries about stalkers and stuff, and I find it fascinating, the kind of mindset that people get into, and it's horrifying. It's totally disgusting. This man needs some help instead of what he was getting. I do recommend it if you can handle that. Very dark. And it's a trilogy, I think, so I might end up reading the next 2 if I can find copies, because I think he continues doing what he's doing, and I'm very interested. The next thing I read was a NetGalley arc manga, and it's called Life Lessons with Uramichi Onisan, Volume 1. I had heard so many people on BookTube talk about this because it's about to come out, and say that it was too cynical, it was too dark, the humor was not for them. And I was like, oh, because I had already gotten approved, and I was like, I'm gonna check it out anyways. If it's garbage, I'll just rate it and move on. I am obsessed with this. Oh my god, it's so funny. It's got that Gen Z humor. And when I say that, I know that I'm not Gen Z. But this, if you're on TikTok a lot and you're on the funny Gen Z side of TikTok, which I tend to get on a lot because I think that they're hilarious, it's very down, very cynical, very, I'm going to smile, but I'm also going to tell you a depressing thing that happened, and then I'm going to dance to it on TikTok. That's just their humor, is to they're depressed, but they're going to have fun while they're doing it, because what else are they going to do, Makes sense to me, but it's hilarious. It's got all of that cynical humor. This guy he's doing a kid's show with all these people that he's kind of friends with, and he's an adult, 30 years old, and he doesn't know what he's doing with his life. And he's telling these kids, don't be like me, don't become a piece of crap that does nothing with his life and wants to die. It's just that kind of stuff, and it's hilarious to me. Like, everybody in this show is just so excited and happy on TV, but then when they're like in real life, they're just so dark and like scary even. I'm in love with the main character. He is fantastic. And there's this one guy who, like, any little joke that you make or anything you say, like a blue-footed booby, if you say the word booby, he like starts cracking up. So he's just like an immature adult, and it's so funny. And then there's the girl who wants to get married, and that's like her big thing, is like she thinks she's too old to get married or whatever, and it's like a lot of pressure, and so she's just like, I want to get married. It's so cute. I love it. I can't wait to read the next volume. I'm definitely going to be collecting this one if it continues to get printed, but I'm worried about it because a lot of people aren't loving it, so I hope that it gets good recommendations and a lot of people read it, because I want to read it. It has a rating of 3.69 on Goodreads, and I gave it 5 stars. Easily. Recommend it highly. The next thing I read is one that I would never normally pick up. It's The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. This is a old book. It might be her only novel, I think someone said. I could be wrong on that, but I think it might be her only novel. It's an older book, and it was really, really depressing. I don't know if you've ever read Sylvia Plath. I had not. I had heard that her writing was very dark and very sad. It was right. This was one of the most upsetting and depressing things I have ever read in my life. I listened to it. It was a free audiobook on Libby. Why not? I'll read something more classic and it'll be interesting. Give it a shot. Holy moly. This is a story that pretty much lays out her whole life. Like, it's very, very close to her real life. It's not necessarily an autobiography, but it feels like one. We're following this character who is a writer, and she's going through her college / she's traveling to New York to do kind of like an internship that she won, where she gets to write and work for this big company for like a year or something. And then she gets to come back home and continue college, which she's applied to during all this. She ends up getting assaulted in New York. Her friends and her get poisoned at this big event. There's a lot of things that are good that happen, but mostly just bad things. And then when she gets home from New York, she doesn't get accepted by this college, and her mom is awful. Like, she's just a horrible human being. Like, her mom was like borderline abusive. And she just spirals into this she just goes so deep into depression and self-harm, and she tries to kill herself at least twice, if not more. And it's just so sad. And I think the worst part for me listening to this was when she was talking about trying to find out how she's going to kill herself. So very triggering. I do not recommend this if you're at all sensitive to any of those things, because it put me in a mood, and I'm so glad that I finished it as quickly as I did, because if I had just been thinking about this for days, it would have really put me in a bad mood. But it was so good. If you think you can handle those things and it not really affect your day-to-day life like it would me, I recommend it. I gave it 4 stars, average rating 4.01 stars, so that's spot on. It was just really, really sad to read this, and she ended up, like, not in the book, but in real life, she ended up committing suicide. So her life did not end up going as planned, and I hate that, because she obviously was very talented and a beautiful person. I recommend it if you can handle this, and I'm glad that I did read it because it was interesting. And the last thing I read this month was Someone We Know by Sherry Lapina, ending the month on a sour note. This book was an audiobook on Libby again. I just wanted to listen to something, and it was like 7 hours, so I got it done in a day. It was so bad. I gave this 1 star, you guys, and I don't do 1 stars very often, if that tells you anything. This story is about a woman who lives in this neighborhood with all of these people, and there ends up being like a wife is murdered, the husband's the suspect, of course. It just felt really run-of-the-mill thriller to me. Nothing was unique about it. I wasn't surprised at any point. There were a bunch of red herrings like thrown at you, but I did appreciate that. I guess that's the only redeeming quality, is they gave you a lot of false flags, But overall, I didn't think the writing was great. There were a lot of instances where I was kind of confused as to why a character was acting the way they were for no reason. Like, nothing would be gained from them acting this way. It would just make them look really suspicious. The characters were all stupid. They were all cheating with each other. Everyone was nasty and horrible. No one had any redeeming qualities. There was some hacking cringe in here. They like to throw hacking in books like this sometimes that no one knows what they're talking about. And it was cringy, and there was a lot of sexism, a lot of fat phobia. It was so lame. Like, I did not like anything about this. The climax wasn't that cool. I just did not like it. I think it was the most, if you literally just said textbook thriller, this is what would pop up. It just felt like run-of-the-mill, nothing interesting going on. So I don't recommend it. It has pretty good ratings on Goodreads. It has a 3.93 on Goodreads. So people like this. And I've heard of this author before. So I don't know what it is. Maybe I need to check out another book by them, but this was not it for me. I gave it 1 star. Did not like it. Poop. Done. Glad I finished it. I was so done. But yeah, guys, that's it for my January. I read so many books. I was so excited. A lot of audiobooks help with that too, and manga. But yeah, if you've read any of these books or if you're interested in them, let me know in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe. I know that it's been a crazy world out there, but I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Please stay safe, wear your masks, take care of each other, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.